All right, so the news has been full of a whole bunch of serious, and for good reason, right? But I'll tell you what, I think we're all due for a good funny story here in the midst of all the serious stuff, so I'm gonna give you one here today. Last week, we were coming in on Tuesday night to record our worship set. That's every Tuesday night we record the worship, and the worship needs to be recorded in two parts. One of them is video, the other part is audio. And those are done separately. So the band comes in at 5 o'clock, and we're gonna practice the set first, and then we record it afterwards. Last week had a couple of extra special things for me in my schedule. We got a couple of new cameras that we're using for recording, and so those had come in at 2 o'clock last Tuesday, and I was bound and determined to use these cameras to use for worship recording on that evening. So I was rushing around all day trying to get settings and get myself familiar with these cameras. Hunter Dainsberg and Emma Hudziak come in and they do the video side of the recording for us, and so I had to be ready to show them how to use the new stuff, so that was in my headspace. We also had a couple of new worship team members who hadn't done any of the recording yet with us, and so that was going to be something new, so they needed some coaching and some questions answered and some direction given. So just a lot of new things kind of rolling around in my head. So I'm in charge of hitting the record button and recording the audio during our video recording time. So we did our worship practice, we took a little break, we went up on stage, took a deep breath, and we recorded the worship set. Everything is good to go, we send everybody home. I'm walking around the church getting ready to shut things down for the night, and I realized I didn't turn off the video or the audio recording. And so I go back to the soundboard to go shut things off on the computer, and I look at the computer and realize that I totally forgot to hit record. I'd gotten everything set up, but I didn't hit record, and we have no audio. We have beautiful video, we have no audio. So I'm going through my head trying to figure out any way to rectify the situation, and I come to the conclusion the best way to do this is simply to get on and humbly text the team and say, hey friends, I messed this whole thing up. We need to have you guys come back tomorrow, and we got to redo this again because I totally screwed up and forgot to record audio. So thankfully the worship team was very gracious after a little bit of joking, and you can understand why. They all came back, and we did this all over again on Wednesday night. Now we got the video going. This time I was sure to get back on the computer, make sure everything was set up. I hit record, everybody knew it. I went back on stage, we recorded the worship set. I had a youth group live that night on YouTube, so I didn't go through and check everything afterwards, but everybody got sent home. I quick did youth group live, went home, went to bed. I come back the next morning because Thursday is my editing day. I go back to the computer to go take those tracks off of there and bring them onto my computer to do editing. And I look, and it's been recorded, but it's just flat lines. There's no sound waves on there. It wasn't grabbing any audio from the board. And I look in the settings, and somehow this thing had disconnected from our soundboard, and it was recording blank. It wasn't recording any sound. Now, time number 2, I think I took this pretty well. I didn't overreact. I didn't freak out. I think I handled it pretty well for myself. But really, it was another situation. I had to jump back on that text, and I basically said, you guys are gonna hate me, but somehow a setting was off. This thing didn't record again. I didn't get it done. You guys all need to come in tonight. We got to do this on number 3. Oh my word. It was just like, it was unbelievable. And I'll tell you what, by this third time, it was like Groundhog's Day, because everybody was coming in with their dress up clothes to be up on stage, and they had the same outfit 3 nights in a row, all showing up. Everybody kind of came in the same sequence. I mean, there was some humor in it, that's for sure. And everybody let me know that there was some humor in it, and I deserved every single bit of it. But everybody was super gracious as well. For the third time, we record the video. I got the audio. I tested it in front of everybody. We heard it back. Everything was good. So here's the deal. At my expense and the humor at my expense, I want to share with you guys, there's 3 lessons I think we can pull from this funny story. Because God, I'll tell you what, promises us that all things will be used for good. The first one is this: life is always going to be full of the unexpected. You can plan to your heart's content, and you can think you know where life is going, and days and weeks will go by, and the unexpected, you can always expect the unexpected, as they say, right? And so that can become very worrisome. That can be crippling to some folks. And here's what Jesus promises us in the book of Matthew. He says, "This is why I tell you, do not worry about everyday life. Whether you have enough food and drink or enough clothes to wear, isn't life more than food and your body more than clothing? Look at the birds. They don't plant or harvest or store up food in barns. For your heavenly Father feeds them, and aren't you far more valuable to him than they are? Can all your worries even add a single moment to your life? So friends, I'll just tell you, I was reminded this week that the unexpected always happens. The unexpected is to be expected, and God is still God in the midst of the unexpected, and he is providing a way. He is sustaining. He has a plan that's going to press forward, and we need to trust and walk through that with him. To give us what we need to handle our fear, to handle our anger, to handle our frustration, to handle our feeling of out of control, because we can trust in a God who is in control. So friends, expect the unexpected and trust God through it. The second one is this. We have a response that we can learn from us and how we interact. And the Apostle Paul says this in the book of Ephesians. Chapters 1, 2, and 3 in the book, he is talking about the glories of Christ and what he accomplished on the cross and the forgiveness and the grace and the mercy and the love that is poured out from Jesus onto us because of his miraculous act of dying and his resurrection from the grave. In chapter 4 here is the first time he's actually speaking to the church on their response to that good news. And here's what he says. Always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. He says, make every effort to keep yourself united in the Spirit, binding yourself together with peace. Friends, the worship team were so gracious with me last week, so willing to go the extra mile, so willing to pick up at my faults, so willing to bear with me and to make sure that this service was going to happen. I am eternally grateful for them, for how they acted last week, how they treated me, their willingness to press on, their willingness to make it happen. It was a testimony of the type of congregation that we have here at Calvary. Friends, in the midst of our failures and difficulties, it's going to happen to all of us. Are you going to bear with one another? Are we going to trust in these promises of God to say, be people of peace, be people of love? There will be a blessing for the family when they treat each other in this way. Because there will be seasons when I'm giving that to those that need it. But there will be seasons when I'm falling short, when I'm going to be very, very thankful that there's people who are binding together with me, bearing with me in the midst of my difficulty, in the midst of my failures. And the last one here, friends, and this is the most powerful of all of them, is that God has promised us that he is in control. He's promised us that he's a trustworthy God, that we can trust in him for all things. And it's said very plainly here in the book of Joshua. At this time, the Israelites and Joshua, the nation has now been settled in the land of Israel, where they were promised to be, and they've overcome a lot of unexpected and a lot of situations that were totally out of their control and overwhelming. They walked up to the edge of the land, they saw what was before them, they were terrified of it, they saw no way that they could conquer it, but God continually came through and won the war, won the battle, brought them through each season. And it was one showing his power and his authority and showing that he is capable of handling all their troubles and difficulties. All they had to do was trust in him. And here is the response after they've settled and the land's been handed out to the different families. Here's what it says. So the Lord gave to Israel all the land he had sworn to give their ancestors, and they took possession of it and settled there. And the Lord gave them rest on every side, just as he had solemnly promised their ancestors. None of their enemies could stand against them, for the Lord helped them conquer all their enemies. And here's the awesome part. It says, not a single one of all the good promises that God had given to the families of Israel was left unfulfilled. Everything he had spoken came true. Friends, you can take God's promises to the bank and you can place your life on it. That he loves you, that he's in control, that he's working all things for good, that he's here to sustain you, that his perfect plan will always go forth, that God wins in the end. Our good King is going to reign supreme. Friends, as it says here, everything he has spoken came true. It will come true. You can bet your life on it. So friends, life is going to throw you unexpected. It's going to throw you difficulties. And the question is, how are we going to trust God and respond in it? Are we going to hand over our worry and our fear and our anxieties over to him and trust him with it? Are we going to choose together to walk through it together and bear with one another, being givers and receivers of that? And then lastly and thirdly, are we going to find joy in trusting in a God that all of his promises come true? He never fails. He will always be the one whose promises come true. So friends, hold on to that tightly to your hearts here this week. And until next time, we'll see you later. Bye.